Hi, I'm Dr. Kandelakis. In today's Healthy Minute, we're going to talk about reading and interpreting your blood values. When you go to Quest or LabCorp or ACL, whatever lab you've chosen, you'll get lab results back, and those results will have lows and highs. We call those clinically pathological lows and highs. That means your organ, if it's in either area of that range and it's very low or very high, your organ is not really functioning very well. And then there's a functional range, which is much tighter, more centered between those two pathological ranges. And it's very important to understand because you can actually still have symptoms and be above the clinical danger zone on the low end, the pathological zone, but you're still in a region where the organ is not functioning very well. Here's an example of a range we're going to talk about. A few fast facts before we do this. Most labs do not have race-specific testing, so all of genetics of humanity is grouped into pretty much the same for most of the tests, and that genetic variable comes into play when we're determining organ health and assessing that. Second thing is it includes mostly all ages, from young to old, so organ function is going to be highly variable. Third thing is that you can still have symptoms and still be within a clinical normal range, even though it's not a functional normal range. And each lab has its own lab normal values, which means that if you're on the cusp of a clinical normal, pathological normal in one lab, and then you go to another lab, and all of a sudden you're thrown out of it and you're pathologically abnormal flagged result, that may be because the lab test itself, the medical director of that lab, has chosen a different value for what they're considering abnormal. So bear in mind, if you do change labs and you're doing year after year blood work, you may want to try to stay with the same lab. Here's an example of functional and pathological normals. Pathological normal for blood glucose may be around 60, 65, and on this end it may be more like about 120, 110. But a functional range is actually much tighter, 76 to 95, 75 to 90. Okay, that means that if your organ is actually functioning very well. It's managing whatever process it's designed to manage properly. In this case, it's going to be the pancreas and blood sugar. So if you get a test back and your lab is coming in a little bit above pathological, low normal, okay, and you're having symptoms, that's the reason, because the organ is not really functioning optimally, and it's not functionally a lab value that we would consider as functional. Okay, the functional lab values are much tighter in here. Okay, so that ends our Health Minute, and I hope you have a better understanding on how to read and interpret your lab values.